Coming to 20 years after independence, the small Central Asian state of Kyrgyzstan remains one of the poorest parts of the former Soviet Union. Kyrgyzstan is breathtakingly beautiful in the spring. Long mountain ranges reaching through the forests towards the snow line. Vast fields dotted with cows and sheep, and deep valleys which are a playground for the many horses in the country. Over 90% of Kyrgyzstan is covered with mountain ranges, where most of the country's 6 million people live. But the idyllic scenery can be deceiving of the people's true plight. Over 1/3 of the people live below the poverty line. Living standards are particularly low in mountainous regions due to the lack of accessibility and long, harsh winters. The reasons for such poverty in a country which is blessed with many natural resources, including gold, is manifold and complex. But there is a strong sense among the people that they are still reeling from the aftermath of the Soviet collapse 2 decades later. The Kyrgyz are historically nomads, and they were settled in villages only with the arrival of the Soviet Union in the 1920s. Communism brought schools, hospitals, factory work, and a total reorganization of Kyrgyz society. During this time, the economy hummed along with artificial demand created by Moscow. But when Soviet state coffers went bust and independence was thrust upon unwilling Kyrgyz in 1991, the people found there were no real markets for the goods they produced. Factories shut, millions were unemployed, and poverty soared alongside government corruption. Ulan Bakev, who was just finishing school at that time, remembers those turbulent times clearly. He says state property was divided up with no consideration of people's skills. In some places, factory mechanics were given sheep to take care of. In others, shepherds were given tractors, though they didn't know how to drive. Division of state property was arbitrary and chaotic.
Ошол эсирдин убагында ошол баарын даярдап берген элге. Ал эсир союз тарагындан кийин элге аябай эле оорчулук болду. Мисалы үчүн дыйкан чарба тарадык. Элдин баягы өзүнө деп малдын баарын бөлүп берди, жердин баарын бөлүп берди. Трактор, техника бүт баары бөлүнгөн элге. Анан мисалы үчүн биз ошого убагында ошого даяр болбой калдык. Малдардан көп кармап кала албай калдык. Себеби мына биз үлүшкө тийген малды, өзүбүздүн үлүшүбүзгө тийген малды күзүндө таратып алдык, кышында котур оорусу менен ооруду. Ошону дарылай албай калдык. Кышында кантип дарылайбыз, эмне кылабыз аны?
The people of Kyrgyzstan come from a proud tradition as nomadic horsemen and warriors of the Central Asian steppe. But this changed with the Soviet system. Almost 70 years of specialization in industries during the Soviet Union meant that many had lost the knowledge and skills to care for livestock. Yet with factories shut, there were no alternatives but to leave for pastures and attempt to breed livestock again. Failure in the immediate post-Soviet years was common. Animals died with no drugs available to treat them and no knowledge on how to care for them. People like Ulan at that time barely scraped by.
Мен өзүмдүн жашоомду алсам, бизге сырттан киреше кирчүмөс. Жана айтып өткөндөй эле мал арзан болду. Ошол кезде элдин эле жашоосу аябай жакыр болчу. Нандын эле эки жагында туз болчу. Бир крандай чай. Кышында мен жаңы сарайга көчүп келгенде ушул жерде отун суудан аябай кыйналганбыз. Көмүр ала алган эмеспиз. көңдөрүбүз аз болчу, кышында жетпей калган, суук болчу. Кыйын болгон аябай эле.
Ulan's wife also had her first child around the time and needed to count on her extended family's support and charity to raise them.
Аябай кыйын болду. Мисалы биз сарайга 98-жылы барып, 99-жылы экинчи кызымды төрөгөм. Бизде уйду ал кезде уй да жок болчу, бияк айылда саачу да. Бир эл уй алып, анан ата-энеси саачу. Андан кийин ал убакта уже балама берер сүт жок, өзүм карандай чай ичип, уже 3 айында эле эмчектен чыгып кеткен да. Уже эмчекке сүт келбейин ойлонушту, жалаң карандай чаймен. Андан кийин сууга эле уже талканча алып бышырып берчүбүз ал кезде. Ал кезде аябай оор болгон ошол жылдары.
Driven by boredom, escapism and desperation, many men turned to alcohol after the Soviet collapse. A bottle of vodka cost less than $1, and it became easy to drown one's sorrows instead of confronting them.
Эч кимде айылда жумуш жок болгондуктан ар бир эле экинчи киши арак ичип калган көчөдө. Көчөгө чыгабыз, чогулабыз. Биздин кылар кызматыбыз жок болгондуктан, иштебегендиктен арак ичкенге туура келип калган. Аракты дубагында аябай эле иштик. Жашырганда мен аны.
Ulan has quite a big herd to take care of now, but just 4 years ago, he had nothing. Many of his sheep were eaten by wolves because Ulan was drunk on the job, while others died of disease. His family were in dire circumstances. What changed his fate was a chance meeting with Camp Alatu, an NGO working on rural development. At first, Ulan got work with them building roads in remote rural areas. Subsequently, he attended seminars to learn more about cattle breeding. Camp Alatu also subsidized a course for Ulan in artificial insemination to help improve the quality and fertility of his cattle. Today, Ulan has a healthy herd of 150 sheep and 16 cows, which he takes turn to care for together with his brothers. He has also quit drinking. The family lives in the village most of the time, and they eat meat regularly, unlike before, where meals were bland mixes of bread and tea.
Кубанычтуу элебиз. Ойдогудай эле. Баары жакшы эле болуп атат. Жашоо деле жакшы, балдар сабакка барып атат.
Villages in Kyrgyzstan need to have more success stories like that of Ulan. Unfortunately, many are still finding it hard to cope. 1 in 5 people are unemployed in the country, and post-Soviet industrial growth is slow. That's why there has been a huge outflow of migrants to Russia. These migrants become easy prey for human traffickers, and many endure a life of hardship in foreign cities just so they can send money back to their relatives. It's a scenario that can be prevented if there was a system and know-how to make use of the vast natural resources in the countryside. Every village has access to fertile plains, and it's a matter of learning how to use it to alleviate poverty.
Процесс демократизации, который начался после коллапса Советского Союза, имеет много положительных сторон. Но он столкнулся с неподготовленностью местного населения к той ответственности, которая пришла к ним, ответственности за управление и использование природных ресурсов, которыми они владеют и которыми они должны управлять.
Poor governance and poor resource management is the main cause of poverty here. And the situation hasn't changed much in the last 2 decades. The country has had 2 revolutions, the most recent one occurring in 2010. And the state is often too mired in politics to address poverty and its solutions. That's why NGOs like Camp Alatu are important. In a vacuum of state assistance, They come in to train villagers, teaching them what seeds to sow for the best grass for grazing, what fruits to grow, and how to improve the health of their animals. The situation is far improved from the post-Soviet years, but there still remains a lot of work to be done.
Қазір албетте элдин көбү өздөрүнүн проблемасын кантип могу жакырлыктан чыгууну көрүп билип турушат. Бирок ошол учурда эле булардын акча каражаттан муктаждыгы чоң экен. Анан биз Кемп Ала Тоо коомдук фонд ушуну эске алып микрокредиттик агентство уюштурдук.
Due to the work of Camp Alatu and several other microcredit organizations, villagers have been able to access credit to purchase seeds or fodder for their livestock. Bit by bit, many are improving their lives. The hope is that this development will keep pace and that the peace will not be broken by the country's tumultuous political transformations. The family is at the center of work, play, and almost all aspects of life in Kyrgyzstan. 3 generations are expected to live together, whether in these tents known as yurts or in villages. And the building of the yurt is also a family affair. Every component of this structure is handmade. The grandmother stitched the carpet coverings, while her sons carved the sticks which form the foundation. Daughters are responsible for the flooring, made from wool. The yurt isn't just shelter. It's a symbol of family cooperation and Kyrgyz history. But increasingly elders are not living in yurts because their sons are migrating, and it's impossible to undertake the construction of these yurts alone. All over Kyrgyzstan, high unemployment in rural areas are driving people to cities and overseas in search of work. The result is often a lonely elder who sometimes also have to shoulder the responsibility of raising young grandchildren while their own children are away. One such person is 75-year-old Kakan Kyrgyzova. Her husband died in 1991, and although she has 8 sons, none of them are living with her. Most of them are working in the cities and come back occasionally for visits. She receives a state pension of about $20 a month, but this money is not just for her. Kakan has to care for her grandchildren while their parents are away.
Pensiya 2000 ил алам, андан ашык албайм. Pensiya un alayын десем, башкаларына жетпейт. Унда кымбат болбоду.
Between January and December 2008, the prices for basic food items such as flour rose by 20%, stretching the coping mechanisms of the most vulnerable populations to breaking point. In response, the World Bank announced a $10 million grant to the Kyrgyz Republic under its fast-track facility for food crisis. But Kakan did not feel the impact of this aid. After paying for flour, she has no money left for other things, such as the repair of her leaky roof. Winter months are especially tough for her, where people have to endure about half a year in temperatures that can go below -30°C. Kakan has no money to buy coal for heating, and she burns dried animal dung to keep herself and her grandchildren warm. Having her own children around will certainly help with the tasks like collecting firewood for heating, but Kakan believes it is more important for them to get employment.
Jo, men özüm ойлойм да. Bir жерде болгондо жумуш жок болсо, андан көрөт ошо шаарга барып иштеп, балдарын баксын. Бизге деле кайрылышат да. Балдарына кийим алып берет, китеп алып берет дегендей окуганда. Ананы алар бизерге турганда кандай мен 2000 сом менен жасыктуу болбойт да. Же кийимге жетпейт, же тамакка жетпей. Продуктуга жетпей калат да.
There are no statistics available on the outmigration of villagers, but according to a survey of 90 people conducted by Help Age International, a London-based NGO, every single household who participated in the study has at least one family member working in Russia or Kazakhstan. Without much support, Kakan struggles to raise her grandchildren, but the 75-year-old has no complaints.
Кыйынчылык деле болбойт балам. Буюрса силердин эне атаңар деле ошо ушуларым деп эме кылат болуш керек. Ушуларым дени сак болсо экен, жакшы болсо экен деп. Анан мен деле ошондой ой менен эле азыр балам ден соолугун эле эметип турам. Балдарын багып алып, жакшы болсо эл журттан чыкпай, жакшынакай жүрсө экен деп.
It is not just in rural areas that elders get left behind. The sight of elders living on their own in cities are also becoming increasingly common. The 76-year-old Evgenia Koleskinova has two sons who both left Kyrgyzstan to work in Estonia and Russia. The former schoolteacher now lives alone in an apartment in Balikchi city. Her radio is always on to drown out the silence.
Уезжала в 2008 году, где-то в конце декабря. Находилась у него 8 месяцев. Вот. Как раз получилось так, что он был без работы. И тяжело было. Но в связи с тем, что я тут кое-что продала, у меня были деньги, мы так с ним прожили. Вот. А потом он устроился на работу, заработал деньги, и мне пришлось приехать домой сюда. Потому что я-то здесь живу, все у меня здесь. Вот. Но я за него сейчас очень-очень довольна. Что он работает, нашел хорошую по душе работу. Вот. Он ювелир сам.
Evgenia tries to keep herself busy each day painting, but the loneliness can sometimes be too much to bear, which is why she looks forward to her days at the Day Stay Center for Elders. Here she teaches other seniors arts and crafts. The elders spend their entire day here, singing, sewing and socializing. The place is a refuge from empty homes.
Когда молодые уезжают, оставляют своих родителей одних, во-первых, у пожилых тоска о близких, одиночество. Вот многие, значит, от безысходности стали увлекаться алкоголем. Доходило до того, что многие решили покончить жизнь самоубийством.
It's not just loneliness that leads to suicide, it's also starvation. The pension isn't always enough to buy food. So the centers provide breakfast and lunch to the elders. And since they have come here, the elders have put on an average of 4 kilograms each. The staff say the elders used to wolf down their meals in 3 minutes when they first arrived. Now they eat normally. Basic healthcare is also provided, helping the elders save a larger portion of the small pension that they get each month. The average pension in this country is about $38.
Ну, как вам сказать, я чувствую глубокое удовлетворение. Почему? Потому что то, что я знаю, я хочу передать людям, чтобы они тоже знали, чтобы они понимали. И иду туда, в центр. Почему? Потому что мне в доме одиноко, хотя работы у меня много. Там общение, понимаете, общение. Я нуждаюсь в общении. Это очень тяжело быть одиноким. Пообщаемся, песни поем. дни рождения справляем. Вот так вот. Ну, я, например, очень довольна. Почему? Потому что, смотрите, я иногда ухожу в центр, я не завтракаю, потому что я уже не успеваю. Я там позавтракаю, там пообедаю. Прихожу домой, я только ужинаю. Это очень большая помощь, понимаете? Во-первых, у меня и с пенсии деньги меньше уходят, понимаете? Вот. Это очень важно.
The day center is clearly a source of comfort. But this is the only daycare center in the whole of Kyrgyzstan, with its population of 6 million people. And it is run by the non-governmental organization Resource Center for Elderly, who relies on foreign donations to operate. There is an urgent need for more such centers, as more elderly get left alone due to the migration trend. But at this point, there is no state funding available for such facilities. In response to this, the Resource Center for Elders and other partners are organizing elder self-help groups in the village. This group of 20 elderly ladies, for example, received $300 in funding in 2009, which they used to invest in sewing equipment, to make blankets, cushions, and other hand-knitted items. These products are sold in a fair and also to resorts, and the profit is then used to purchase things like sugar and flour for everyone in the self-help group. The Resource Center for Elders has organized a total of 127 self-help groups since 1991. But it believes that for there to be a significant improvement in the condition of elders, the state must bear some responsibilities.
На данном этапе наша организация совместно с партнерами продвигает закон о пожилых гражданах Кыргызстана для того, чтобы, как я уже говорила, улучшить качество жизни пожилых людей. В этом законе будут прописаны все права, все льготы и все интересы пожилых людей, чтобы государство могло обеспечить пожилых людей этими правами и всем необходимым, что прописано в этом законе. Этот документ будет просто основополагающим, где будут указываться все обязательства государства по отношению к пожилым людям для улучшения их жизни, для вообще улучшения состояния, положения пожилых людей.
Many elders say they cannot help but feel a sense of grievance. They worked hard in their youth and were promised a comfortable retirement in a communist system. Now they have no party to lay claim to. As the youth migrate, it's a hazy outlook for some elders in Kyrgyzstan as they await their final resting place.